Today I am speaking to a long-term friend of mine, Uncle Sam. He is a sound engineer, music producer, videographer. The list goes on. I've known him for coming up to 20 years. We've made music together. We've run a company together. He has always been very driven since I've known him, which I find fascinating. And the point of this podcast is to speak to people like him. So we speak mostly on sound engineering, how he got into that, advice for people in that field, some of his highs and lows and that sort of stuff. If you need any music production done, or film clips filmed or anything like that, hit him up at Uncool Sam, and I think Dropshot Media on all social for the filmography side of things. This was one of the first, if not the first interview that I did. So I'm still, obviously, as you can imagine, trying to find my feet with this. So if it's a bit clunky or anything, just any feedback would be appreciated, but we're getting there. And it's always a pleasure to speak to Uncle Sam. So without further ado, this is Talking Shop with Uncle Sam.
Pushing too many pencils.
Thank you for coming over.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. Do you want to just shut that door for me? Yeah. Probably should have thought of that before.
I'm professional.
Obviously, as you know, but to let everybody know, I wanted to have you over to talk about what you do for a living.
It ain't pretty.
Yeah. I guess, do you want to explain? Start there. What do you do?
I do a whole bunch of shit.
Yeah, it's hard to fucking...
Little gun for hire.
Yeah.
Nah, I don't know. A little fucking
Prostitution.
Pistol. Yeah, I'll do it if the pay's right. No, fucking... So I do a bunch... So all in the music industry, I guess. Yep. I work predominantly, I guess you'd say, in a recording studio, Shakedown Recording Studios,
yep.
which is where... and I'll do a lot of videography work now so I'll do the film clips.
Which is pretty recent, hey?
Yeah.
The film clip stuff.
Yeah, so it all sort of like really organically grew. I think it started like when you and I were doing it I was making beats.
Yeah.
And then from me making the beats got me the job at the studio, which is kind of what I was studying anyway, but like actually getting that job and shit like that was sort of like a big step for me being able to then do the videos because, I already had people coming through the studio doing that sort of thing. So it was sort of like just the natural step, one after the other.
So is it, because I mean, I've made music with you, enjoy music. Would you say engineer, producer?
Yeah.
What terminology is it?
Depends what you're doing on the day, but probably like...
Are you both? Do you do you do it all?
Yeah, but people hire me to be an engineer first, and then it's like the production stuff that you do as a sort of producer sort of just slips into the role for you trying to be good.
I know, so a producer in the movie is someone who basically makes it all happen. Can you explain...
Yeah, producers...
What does an engineer do? What does a music producer do?
An engineer, like... Technically, the engineer is the one that sort of has his hands on the knobs and stuff like that. His main job is sort of making sure you're... giggity. Making sure you got a nice, clear, clean, caramel, smooth vocal.
So the technical side of it.
So the nerd shit. Originally, the producer's job was like sort of like managing the schedule of the entire project and assisting with the general creative direction of it. So like, the 21st century or 20th century.
Yeah.
What was that in the 90s?
Yeah.
So I don't understand how.
20th century.
That's the 20th, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it ends at the 20th. Yeah. Fuck, that took a long way to say that. Yeah, generally the producer would have a lot more role of just basically like would have a lot of creative stamp on, like, for example, in the rock genre, a producer would have a lot of input on how the band's project would come together and stuff like that, and sort of the creative
more of an
direction.
Overview.
Yeah,
as opposed
exactly.
To...
And because a band by themselves in the studio, it's like, well, what
the fuck are we gonna do?
Yeah, and how do you keep that thing rolling? Also with the label's budget in mind initially. Okay. Nowadays, that's a whole different thing.
What is if I said you're a music producer at Shakedown? What would that mean? What would that entail?
Well, the production side of it is more just, it's sort of blended into one now, where the engineer's main job as well. Well, firstly, producer a lot of the time just means the person who made the music.
Because from my standpoint as like a hip hop dude and making music with you, I would say my understanding of in that genre, a producer is the person who makes the beat.
That's right. Yeah. In hip hop, it totally is.
Yeah.
Like that's how you would say it. But like what a producer would be on like a record 20 years ago
Completely
was a whole different sort of role.
So engineer is more fitting?
Yeah, engineer's more fitting. And then like all the stuff of like managing the project, managing their song, because they come in saying, well, you know, how long is it going to take?
Yep.
You kind of have to be like, okay, we're going to do this, now this, now this. Leading the artist through and be like, well, how about we do this?
You hold the hand through the process.
That's right. And it's sort of just becoming a producer is part of the job if you want to do a good job and have people come back. Which
Clientele.
Is just, suggest stuff. Be like, how about, you know, we take this direction with it, or have you tried to do it like this?
Because you would be quite suggestive if someone's unsure or you think, because you would have a better ear than most.
Yeah.
You would tend to not than most.
I'm sorry, I wasn't saying yeah to that. Yeah. It was a bad time. Yeah.
But you would give comfortably give advice or maybe nudge people in a certain way.
Totally,
the way that a record should sound.
If I try and like, I'll do a tester and like if I'll just be like, hey, why don't we try this on that? And if people are generally open to it, I can tell people don't have to accept the idea to know for me to know if they're open to it or not.
Yeah.
So I can tell, even if they don't like it, I'll be like, I'll know if they're like open to me being like, well, let's try this and this. Because if people are like, what do you reckon? I'll just yab a shit on.
Yeah.
I'll be like, let's try this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
And so like, I sort of, you know, it's good to have somebody who's just like.
Do you prefer like not an open canvas because they come in there with their art, but do you prefer someone who is completely receptive? And in saying receptive, I don't mean they go, yeah, I'll do that, but someone that's not offended. Oh yeah, maybe I will drop this. No, I want to keep this. Does that make better music?
Totally.
From your point of view?
It's hard. Like some of the best artists are like sometimes the most stubborn as well. Yeah. But it's like also sometimes the best tracks you make with upcoming artists are the ones where you're really like flying off each other. So there's never like, if it always worked one way, we'd always do it one way.
Yeah,
right? So
exactly. I guess that's art for you.
Yeah, exactly. Art versus science.
So you mentioned Shakedown, which is where you work.
Yeah.
Which is predominantly hip hop.
Yeah.
Right? Predominantly. With that being said, because of that, you would work predominantly in hip hop?
Yep, totally.
Is there other genres that you work with? I know you personally, and I know you listen and make other genres, but just speaking from a work standpoint.
Yeah, I'll do a bit of like folk work of stuff that I'm doing at the moment.
At Shakedown?
Yeah. So a lot of mixing, not recording, because it's a vocal-based studio. Yeah. We don't record drums and stuff like that.
It's just the vocals.
Yeah, just because once you want to start recording drums in a recording studio, the cost that you need to start that studio just increases exponentially. Yeah, okay. So it's like, being a vocal-based studio, you're sort of limited to things that are primarily vocal-based, or at least that's what it ends up. Yeah. It's you come in with your track, you download it off YouTube. Yeah. And it's like you give it to the dude. Most of the time, it's not even that. It's like, it's type this in. Triple X Tentashi and X Tory Lanes type beat, dark instrumental.
Do you have YouTube to MP3 converter?
Yeah. Oh man, I was just saying the other day, that's like the #1 bookmark site at the studio. Makes sense. And I was like, this is so bad. We have like the best technology in the fucking planet.
It's like just and here we are, just software, hardware,
downloading some 128 fucking kilobyte rip off YouTube. And it's just like.
So with that, I mean, so you're obviously pretty limited. Not limited, but obviously you're mainly going to do hip hop. But you've worked you were a drummer in a metal band. Yeah. You took drum lessons. You're musically pretty well diverse. Do you have, speaking from a work standpoint, do you have a favorite genre to work with? Even though you're quite selective.
I don't know. Yeah, probably like I
like. What do you get enjoyment from?
Obviously, I listen and just work in hip hop the most, and probably listen to hip hop and the most. But I would love to do like a really weird, either like something like more rock based album or something like that, and try and like
that you would make or with somebody
that I would produce with somebody. So not produce in the sense of make the beats, but I would like to basically find a small act or like a small little pop punk, a little 3-piece. I always think, and I read this somewhere, and how resonated with me was like, there's no truer rock act than a 3-piece. Yeah. And I was like, that's like, I reckon that's just so
drum,
cool.
Bass, guitar.
Yeah, and like, singer that like
plays guitar,
and it's like, so it's like everyone's fully invested in a and like, complete side point to that. But I want to find a little act like that and sort of like bring them up, or like
create something
and
with
mix
them.
that. Yeah, and like
so that's what we were talking. Is what you're talking about producing in the different sense.
Yeah, in a
You're not
different
making
genre
beats,
sense. Yeah,
but-
like in rock, you would say you get a producer like that who would sort of like
steer you.
Exactly, yeah. Steer the band, being like, here's how we're going to do it to make it sound like this. And the band would either be like, fuck yeah or fuck no.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, I definitely want to do that. Like, I grew up listening to like heaps of pop punk shit and like Blink-182, Offspring, so shit like that. I'd love to do heaps of other stuff like that because
Well, on that point,
it tests you.
do you... Everyone says, find what you love. What is it? Find what you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side of that, if you do something you love so much, you can stop loving it. Do you find, because again, being a very musically inclined person, do you still make music for yourself? Do you find time of any genre or any capacity?
I would be lying if I said it didn't like affect it.
Yeah, because there's no way it can't.
Yeah,
man.
it's because like, for example, like people are always like, "What are you listening to? What are you listening to?" And I'm like, man, when I'm not at work or not working. Yeah. It's like I don't want boom bap. I'll drive with my girlfriend and like she'll be like, let's just put this on. I'm like, no, we just need to drive. I just want to hear my car hum on the way home from like a 12-hour day of, because it's non-stop music, just hitting your ears constantly.
You're doing 12-hour days usually. Hey?
Yeah, I'll try. I'll do more if I can. Yeah. And it's like just because it's easy, you know. What I mean? You're like it's easy. I explain this. It's easy when other people are coming in being like, here's my music. If I was to sit there and make music for 12 hours, I couldn't do that. Yeah. I can make music for like 3 hours a day and I'm like,
you can only be creative so much and then you just hit a wall.
Yeah. But if people are like, it's like if somebody told you to come in and be like, write non-stop for 12 hours, like if you were an author or something, as opposed to being like, just read heaps of other people's stuff and criticize it. Yeah. More or less criticize, because what you're doing is being like, how do we make that?
Yeah, you're just improving.
But yeah.
So do you, I mean, is that a no? Or sorry.
I forgot the question.
Do you still make music for yourself?
Well,
I mean, you make hip hop beats.
Yeah, I don't know if I like what I mean making it for myself. Probably not. Like, I haven't made a song where I've been like, I'm not going to sell this or give this to somebody.
But selling
not commoditized it.
Again, being in hip hop as well and knowing how it works beat wise, there's a difference, I think, between someone coming to you and saying, Sam, can you make a beat for me? And you at home making beats, even if it's to sell, you're still like do you enjoy that still?
Totally. Like I had a bit of a break for a while of making beats because I was doing a lot of videos, and I was convinced for a while. I was like, no one's buying beats anymore because everything's like YouTube rip culture and stuff like that. So you just...
And like a mixtape now, like when we were growing up and way before our time in hip hop, a mixtape you couldn't sell.
Yeah, and it meant
you gave it for free. Nowadays people are selling mixtapes and you're like, so they just jack YouTube and you know.
And back then it was like this real sprout of the culture being like, it's a dope thing to have this producer of like, you know, from Australia on your project. Yeah, yeah. Whereas now it's like everyone's got access to the best producers in the world on YouTube. Yeah. And you can lease their beats. So you can say, oh, I've got, with, you know, profitable rights. Oh, I had, you know, Kato on the track produced this track. Yeah. And it's like stuff like that.
Is that jacking it or like leasing it?
Leasing
right,
it.
Okay, yeah.
So you're still legally,
yeah, you got the rights to do it.
It is your track on, you know, you could release that song and be like, yeah, it's produced by this producer. And it's kind of like devalued everybody because of that. Like, and it's not devaluing like your work. It's like, obviously Kato on the track is still like, one of the dopest producers in the world, but it's like when everyone can have it, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's 100%. It's like diamonds, right? Like, you know, the fact what makes them special is that
there's not that many of them.
Supposedly.
Yeah.
De Beers. Son of a bitch.
Now
free the diamond mines!
From all of everything you've done yourself, other people, because you've done a lot of projects where I guess you would say produced and engineered like a collaboration of sorts. You've done a few of those.
Yeah, a few like collab projects.
Through your, and I'll use the term career, I find it funny with you, like it is a career, but because it's in like I find it hard in a creative field to use the term career.
Yeah, no,
you know what? It's like kind of doesn't really sit. But I do mean career. But is there a project or projects or a milestone that you're proud of in that industry? Of any kind?
I think, project-wise, like, I mean...
Anything to massive...
Honestly, one of the main things that I, like, remember being like, whoa, was when on the first big tour I did, which was Complete's Death Rattle tour.
Because you DJ as well.
Yeah, so
you can. Yeah.
So when Complete's debut album Death Rattle came out, we did a national tour of Australia. It was like 19 shows, so it was a huge tour.
Yeah. What year? That was last year?
That was
year before, because Corona.
Year before. No, 22. It was the start of 2020.
Just because you were in Queens. Like,
So we had just gotten back at
beginning of last year.
Yeah, we had just finished the tour at like March, and then Corona. Like I remember because we got back to Perth and they closed all the states, and we're like, thank fuck. But yeah, it was the show in Melbourne, and it was a completely sold out show. And,
what was capacity?
I think it was like 300 or something like that. And my missus was there, Storm was there, and because she was over in Melbourne at the time too. So I was like, calm down.
Separate,
completely separate trip. And I was just like, it was like, well, you're here, come to the show. Yeah, that'd be awesome. And she came, and it was such like it was one of the most rowdiest shows, and it was so insane, and it was like one of the ones where you like they were all there like singing all the words to Complete's like Roses and stuff like that, and I just had this moment on stage being like, whoa, this is fucking like.
And you produced that as well?
No, I didn't produce that song.
Recorded it?
You recorded it, but
you saw it go from the studio to 300 people singing.
That's the cool. That's exactly.
Sorry, not produced it. Recorded it.
No, that's exactly like the answer to your question. The coolest thing is like having seen it, and when you're in a studio, being like, oh, like that's cool. Like,
say the again.
Yeah, and then you actually see what it is to other people.
Yeah.
It's like how they say fucking. Like the best scientific discovery. Not that I'm relating us to science, but like they say the best. Like this is just a side fucking. What do you call it? Analogy.
You're good. Go ahead.
The best scientific discoveries like aren't fucking prefixed with like hallelujah. They're prefaced with like that's weird. You know what I mean? Like people when they discover something, like when you're on the verge of something big, it's not like you're like this is huge. Like you think it's going to be this big thing. Yeah. But when you're working on the studio, you're just like, this is dope. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this could be really cool, but then you don't realize how it's just going to spread like wildfire. Yeah.
That song did, man.
And same with On the Contrary, where it's like you think it's going to be the best fucking thing. You
don't know.
And often the shit you think is going to be so good will just completely test you by burning to the ground.
That's a perfect segue because I think today, as a musician, and you would have more knowledge in this than I would, but just as an observer and someone who dabbled in it for a while, I would say it's pretty hard to get plays or a song to be heard without a film clip. Would you agree?
I would totally agree.
So like, is that how you have people, I mean, you obviously have established people who come in, know what they're doing. That's different. But with newer people who come in, you record their music, make beats with them or whatever. Do you suggest, is that how the filming came about where you're like, look, man, you're going to need to do a film clip? Is that how you get traction? Like what makes or breaks a song, you think?
Oh, it's totally the film clip. Like I think people used to be able to, same with like on YouTube. You remember when like there used to be songs on YouTube with just like the picture.
Yeah, or like lyrics in Microsoft Word.
And there still is that, but it's like, there would be like releases which would just be the picture, you know what I mean? And people would like rush and listen to it.
Millions of views.
But I don't know if it's a thing of like how everyone says with shorter attention span and crap like that. But I just think it's like, if you can have a visual impact to a song, just more chance for somebody to be like, wow. You know what I mean? And some people
an extra level,
some people are really visual, you know what I mean, as well. And some people aren't really auditory and can just like hear something and be completely triggered by it, you know what I mean? But maybe if they see a clip, they can be enthralled enough by it to maybe watch it twice.
Yeah, for sure. Or like if there's a funny, I know some, I mean, I couldn't name any off the top of my head, but there's film clips I'll watch for the film clip because like, it's like either from a really good arty standpoint or it's funny or there's a storyline. Like sometimes it's the film clip that I'll watch again, not
straight up. Yeah. And it's like you just can't have a release without it nowadays, unfortunately.
So is that what everyone's doing? Like you basically, if an established artist or someone who wants to become, they're doing a song, they're doing a clip.
The clip
not even
budget.
Like the single off the album and stuff.
Well, it's I think a lot of it is single culture nowadays, and I think the way of the album comes from like a time where like you would need to have something to sell, right? Yeah. So the whole game was like you have these 2 hit songs on your album, and then you have these 10 songs.
So they're going by the album
because you can't sell 2 songs for $20.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they need to have like just you can
something
put a bunch of other
in.
stuff on, but you'd have a lot of writers involved and everything to make this like what's our big single of this, and that would be pushed like astronomically.
Yeah.
And nowadays it's like because you're not selling albums anyway,
And you got
the focus has
streaming.
completely come back to just doing the singles. And it's,
Yeah, right. You don't even necessarily need the album.
yeah,
You could
because
just
you
put out
can't sell it
single-
anyway.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
so you're putting it out for free. So why bother waiting to
Every
produce
song may as
12
well be
songs?
a single. Yeah, I've never
Yeah,
thought about it like that. That makes
Everything
a lot
must
of
be
sense.
one song, and your budgets usually are bigger for like the clips. I hate to say it, like because I like you want to hold the music in reverence, but like the clip is more important, and it's
Yeah.
just like unfortunately it is. If I could pick between like if I was going to bet or buy stocks in an artist of someone who had a really really dope song, not like a catchy pop genius song,
Yeah.
but like a really dope song. And someone who, or like, and a just crappy clip or a picture clip or something
Yeah.
versus someone who, like, had some annoying little like TikTok song, but
a
had
film
like
clip.
some, I don't know, some like new little weird viral kid dance shit
Yeah.
in it. You know what I mean?
That's where your money's going.
I would go, yeah, because I think that's just where the culture's going, and you can fight it or chase the culture or create it or whatever.
Well, I think again, just referencing hip hop and just in Perth, I'm not sure about other genres, but it definitely seems just music in general. There's been a lot more, like you yourself went from doing what you were doing to doing it as a job to then you obviously saw the opportunity for filming and making videos. We obviously did screen printing for a while.
Yeah.
It seems like the power is
Stay
in
low.
the artist's hand. Like there's a lot more grass movement stuff.
Fuck yeah.
Like a film clip, I'm not sure what you charge, and where can people hit you up for music and just quickly plug you?
Yeah, Drop Shot Media is basically just hit me all
Facebook,
up. Yeah,
Instagram?
hit me all up on Facebook, Instagram. Uncool Sam, so not cool.
Yeah, and
you uncool.
Drop Shop Media.
Yeah, that's it. But anyone was fine.
Won't get into prices, but I mean, I know what they are, and they're very reasonable. You know what I mean? While back in the day, if you're trying to make, like, thinking of doing a film clip that's like at the level you can do it now, and that comes with technology as well, but it's very achievable for some
Totally.
dude who's just written a verse and
And it was, but like, and you think about like 15 years ago, you couldn't. It would be silly to make a clip to try and put out as a band because it's like, what are you going to put your clip on? You
Yeah.
know? There's no Facebook.
Yeah, you're not
like,
getting on Rage.
High speed. Yeah, exactly. And
maybe MySpace. but like,
that was the big point. Is like video hits and Rage was
Yeah.
that video clip culture, and
Yeah.
it's like so you could justify paying 20 grand for a clip if it
Yeah.
could get that heavy rotation.
Yeah,
on
yeah, which you won't
Saturday morning
guarantee.
fucking Rage shit. But it's like, but now I feel like the focus is just you need to be hitting people's feeds constantly, and so obviously you can't pay that much for so having video content. So that I feel like hitting people more consistently with I wouldn't say lower level quality.
No, 'cause
but
the
just
quality's still there, but not
Financial
big budget.
production budget is lower.
And just being creative, man. You could take a good quality camera, and if you've got the right concept or editing skills, it's you can't tell the
Man.
difference.
And you
Like
look
I've seen your clips and other people's clips, you know?
and it's even attested nowadays. You look at like TikTok, and it's like the shit that does the best on there is what feels the most homegrown. So
Yeah,
you have
right.
these huge brands doing these ads on like
Yeah.
holding up a phone like it's in their house.
Yeah, I
They walk
see
through
what
their
you're
house
saying.
with their phone.
Yeah.
Because they want it to feel like an influencer did it.
Yeah.
They don't want because when people see like this high production, they go, oh, it's an ad or something.
Yeah,
it has that
and they don't
gross feel.
relate and
They
stuff.
want that feeling of like how everyone's just like they're on their phones.
Yeah.
And I think that's a major point of like where that big market's going and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Or as we we're saying, like you can either create the culture, chase it, or
Well, I think it's just it probably stems into like people can create their own content now so easily. It's
Yeah.
probably threatening to a lot of companies, you know.
But it's like it's also awesome for the artists because this is a huge point that people.
There's no
about-
downside other than I guess flooding.
And you think
maybe.
about what it used to be, right? Like the whole band story of like you would put together a demo tape, try and get a fucking a label to
Airheads with
Yeah.
Adam Sandler, that movie where they hold up the
so many good stories made from that, like archetype of like you're a band and you go to the label and the label
drive
if you're
to
good
LA.
enough they put you on and then you've made it, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But
that doesn't really exist
now
as
it's
much
like
anymore.
everyone's chasing all these homegrown stars that are made in their bedrooms,
Yeah,
and the
YouTube.
labels and then chasing those stars and
Yeah.
going, we want to be a part of that.
Well,
I just think it's such a power shift where everyone's
power shift is the good way to put
they've
it.
changed like who's chasing who, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's great because you can be Lil Nas X and write Old Town Road in your house
Yeah.
and become like the biggest thing in the world
Yeah.
within a few
that's
within a few
crazy.
months. Whereas like back in the day, that would be you'd have to be put on. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? There's no like you'd be sponsored and then now and what the real trap for artists nowadays is that we have that relic of like, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
And so everyone's so obsessed with getting signed to a label because that's how in the past, what
Giving
it would
away
mean for
half
success.
your money or
That's it. And you sign away half your shit. And for something that you were already doing anyway, which is, well, keep making music from your house and we'll distribute it. And it's like, well, I was already getting distributed. Because you got to remember, if somebody wants to sign you, it's like they're coming to you because they think they can make money off you. Because they
There's
see,
no other reason.
So that means you have a potential to be profitable. It's like, but can you do it yourself, or what are they going to bring to the table?
That's what people, I guess, need to sit down and work out themselves.
Yeah, but
now, speaking of getting put on, in terms of music, do you want to? How was your? Not in too much detail, but obviously, I'm very interested in like the creative career, because it's never go to do well in school, do well at uni, it's not as clear cut. It's like the path left taken. Do you want to just give us a quick rundown on how you ended up at probably one of the most popular hip hop studios, and like, was it study? I know you've always been musically inclined. What's the 1 to 10 path you took?
I think, well, like I always wanted to do my own. I was always always super keen on like music, right? Mm-hmm. And early on, I was like, I wanted to do it all myself. I held like that idea of like you understood like what was happening rather than you go to a studio and be like, here's my songs, make me sound good. Oh, I can't stop burping.
You're right.
Yeah, I was always super interested in that, and that's exactly how we ended up starting out sort of in a creative sense, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you ended up needing a song recorded for a TAFE project, and so that
high school, but
and that's when and that's when I was like, going to TAFE. So I'm trying to organize my thoughts of the timeline in my head. Yeah, it was high school. Yeah, it was high school, wasn't it? Yeah. And so I remember dropping out of high school because I wanted to go study sound engineering, because that's what would be all the studio shit and stuff like that. And I remember telling my parents,
high school to sound engineering.
So no, I had to do you either had to graduate high school to be qualified or do a bridging course. Yeah. And I could save time if I did a bridging course as opposed to graduate. I'd get an extra year basically earlier in there. And like my parents were obviously like not happy. And but I ended up doing it, and so did the bridging course. Feels like an IT. That was like that.
So the bridging course wasn't anything to do with sound engineering. No, it was just there just had to be a course that had to be done.
I think it was a prerequisite saying that, like, well, if you know how to use the basic computers, you probably can handle the course.
It was just a credit in your name when you went to apply for it.
So went to TAFE, studied at TAFE, did that for 2 years, got my diploma.
So 2 years in IT.
No, sorry, I did a 6-month course in IT, and
then went to sound engineering.
Yeah, and that was then a 2-year sound engineering course.
Yeah.
So did that. Had a bunch of great.
What's the experience? Just
awesome. Like, would recommend it. It was wicked lecturers. Met a bunch of wicked dudes who are still mates with today.
Cool.
And we ended up. So I finished that. Tried to apply for a bunch of jobs at studios, and it's like,
I could assume it's just
no. Basically, you just don't get calls back. And trying to be like, I'll clean toilets. I'll just like do anything just to be there. You know what I mean? Yep. And nothing. And this is when we were like, as Intrusive Thoughts, you and I and Reams and Trud were making the first project.
Yeah.
And we had finished that. I think I remember. I ended up right in the middle of that. I ended up thinking, this isn't gonna. I need to do something, right? So I was like, I thought maybe I'll become a teacher or some shit, because I was like.
Because I remember you studying teaching at some point.
This is just coming back to me. I forgot about this whole period of my life for like 6 months where I was like not getting a job. I was still doing my like job at the time, which is just like fixing computers and shit for this point of sale, my dad's point of sale company, and trying to get a job, couldn't get one, and so trying to get a studio job. Sorry, so I went and I thought I'll just become a teacher. That's like my backup plan, right? Yep. Started doing that, and that's when we started picking up and getting a bunch of shows.
That's when we started making music and doing gigs and stuff.
Like we were already doing it, but I remember like it was like we were getting and I was like, I remember feeling like the pinch of like, I was like, I don't even give a fuck about this. Yeah. Like, why am I doing this? And I was like, things are picking, we're getting with shows. I was like, I just literally, one day I was just like, I'm out. Yeah. I literally remember having that thought one day where I was like, I'm just out. And I went to the office and I was like, just withdraw me, get me the fuck out of here.
From the teacher thing?
Yeah. And then, so we were I was living in Maylands. That's when we were doing all our rehearsal sessions, just started recording, doing our gigs. And I remember once we got it all, the whole
And you
album
have a
done,
diploma at this point. So you're
had
qualified.
I believe I had my
getting
diploma.
the job is the hard part.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. And I always knew I was like, I'm not going to get a job in this field. It was just for my own personal development. But I was
Of
like,
course.
the reality slowly hits as you get older. You're like, I need to do something.
Yeah.
And then so I remember we finished the project and we were like, what should we do with this? Like we were all talking about this, and you were like, oh, let's take it to Rob Shaker.
Yeah, to master. Hey?
Yeah. And I was
Mix
like,
it. You mixed it. He mastered it.
So he ended up just helping it. Basically, because I couldn't get the stems, he just sort of like said, I'll do this and help you with this. And because it wasn't like a proper mix down because you couldn't do it because you didn't have the stems. But with that aside, he basically helped with the mix and mastering. But I ended up taking it to him and Sid. I don't think I did sit on the process. No, that was the next project. But gave it to him, and then I'm pretty sure it was a day after or something. He called me and he goes, "Oh yeah, did you make all the beats on it and stuff like that?" And he goes, "Oh, it sounds sick." And he goes,
"Dope."
And he goes, "Oh, would you be keen on like doing? I'm looking for a fill-in producer or engineer, at the studio."
It's like the universe just opening a door for you, like, yeah.
I was like, "Holy shit!"
And right place, right time, right training,
and it was just like that was like I remember that I was like, "What the fuck?" That was the single-handedly the biggest changing factor.
Yeah, right on.
I was like, if that didn't happen, I don't know, like if I would have had,
Of course, you never know.
Yeah,
but
like I definitely would be somewhere completely different now.
But if you hadn't have put yourself through what you had in terms of study and trying to reach out for jobs and stuff, that door wouldn't have opened later down the line. You know what I mean?
That's right. I guess, it's
and
totally
you've been there ever since, right? You're still there?
Yep,
obviously.
Still there. I think it's like, 5 years.
Fucking hell.
Half a decade.
Well, I mean, you kind of just went through it, so you probably answered this question indirectly. But just to wrap it all up, anyone who wants to get into maybe music producing, engineering, anything in that field, what would some advice be? Just short and sweet.
Buy a couple pieces of good gear.
Yeah. Find
some dope artists and offer to record their shit for free.
Yeah, okay.
And once you're good enough,
like at home, set your own shit up.
Like obviously you're gonna start at home. Like if you're like, I want to start recording people, you're not gonna build a big studio. So it's like, buy some good home gear. Buy some shit home gear. Buy some shit stuff and just check that you want to do it.
Yep.
Because
let's say they know they've ticked that box.
Yeah, because a big problem is a lot of people go, I want to do this, and you buy fucking 10 grand of shit, and you go, how do I actually make this work now? And it's like,
they don't
you missed
have
the
any
whole
foresight.
point. Yeah. But let's say you're just like, I'm going to do this. Just offer. I guess it's the old business attitude: is
put yourself out there.
And give way more than you take it for, until the point where everyone's coming to you.
Yeah. Everyone wants to work with you.
Until you're like, you're the dude, and your time can't be like given out. Like you have to pick and choose.
Yep.
That's when you start. You can,
and then your
ask
stock
for
goes
money.
up.
But yeah, exactly. But it's like at the start, just give away. Because that's what we did at the start. We were just like, oh, you want to rap on my beat? Take my beat. Please rap on it. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Because you just want your name out there, right?
Spread it.
And then the
product speaks for itself. What would happen? So let's say someone does that. Would you then in today's... I mean, I don't understand how that industry works too well, but would you then... Let's say you're established. Would you then go and try get a job at a studio still? Right, once you have like a portfolio of here's my shit, would you then go and apply?
Yeah, it's worked.
If you weren't making enough money,
I mean, it's worked in the past. So I shouldn't say don't do it. Do whatever. There's you got to be creative, right? There's a dude who recently gave a bunch of beats to producer I was talking about before, Kato on the track. Huge
what is it,
producer.
Kato?
Kato on the track. Yeah, huge producer. And this producer, another producer, I believe it was a producer, maybe he was an MC, I can't remember, but like gave him an envelope at like some meet and greet with like $20 on it, and it was like taped to the top, and it was a USB on the inside.
Yeah.
And he fully stopped him and was like, "This is like marketing," you know what I mean? He's like, "Because I would
$20.
He's like, "I would remember." He's like, "It's a show that like rather than just take my USB,
here's $20."
It's like I value your time, and it was like the gesture of like I know like you're not just gonna take a USB and like take your time and plug it in and give it a listen. So it's like here's a gesture of I'll give up my resources to see if you'll give up some of yours, and like I think that's like a big, huge thing in the industry, like because you can go to everybody and be like, hey, help me with this.
Yeah.
But if you kind of go to people and be like, hey, can I help you with this? And like
in a non-salesy way. Yeah. I'm willing to do this on the hope that you might help me with this, but not under the understanding that you will.
That's it. And it's like, don't be like, hope that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I hope I'll get it, but it's like,
So
if you're just there long enough, people will find a need for you.
Yeah, and again, the product speaks for itself.
Yeah, and that's like.
So put yourself out there.
I think that's like business 101, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Like you can't skip that step and go straight to like asking for value and stuff like that, because it's just you got to be the janitor and shit at the start.
Yeah, well,
and like,
you
got to
don't
be
have
willing
a
to do
value.
that. That's
Yeah.
not a disrespect thing. That's like I think that's totally like fucking pull up your bootstraps sort of shit.
Yeah.
It's like no one's gonna make your future for you. Start at the bottom.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to think that it's like they want to be the fucking sit in the big seat and be the big like producer, call all the shots and shit.
Up.
But it's like the real way you get to the top is from 1 to
you
9,
can't
so
skip.
it's like,
No, wise words, man. Well, look, dude. Always a pleasure speaking to you.
You too, brother.
Much love.
Yeah, all the best.
Anything new? Anything you want anyone to know? I guess we plugged Film Clip and.
No, just if people want to hit me up for anything, questions, videos,
Uncool Sam,
beats,
UNCOOL.
It's
Uncool
pun
Sam.
of Uncool Sam, which
He's
is what I
American.
used to be called.
Yeah. All right,
Back
Playboy.
in the forbidden days. Thank you.
We don't
bro.
speak of those.
Appreciate you.
Much love.
Cheers. Let's go.